Well, this is Mr. Bressler with our first little lesson here, I guess, for physics over the pandemic for forces. So what we're going to do here is we are going to just talk a little bit about Newton's laws real fast and go over some types of forces that are common in the world. And then from there, I'm going to ask you guys to try to do some free body diagrams. I'll show you how to do some, and then the assignment for this lesson will be trying to do some of your own. Just take a picture of them and send them back to me, and you get credit for that. So that'll be great. So I'm just going to work my way through this PowerPoint and just cover a couple little things, and then we'll get on to the free body diagrams afterwards. All right, so as far as forces go, forces were really developed by one guy. His name is Isaac Newton. Some people before him did some research and paved the way, but what Isaac Newton really did was he kind of put everything together in three nice cohesive laws that we'll talk about in a little bit. But Newton developed the laws of motion, the law of gravity, and also calculus in the 1600s. So a lot of the stuff we have to talk about and a lot of the modern physics stuff was based on what Newton did. So as far as forces go, a force is a push or a pull, or any action that has the ability to change motion. Forces can do a couple things. They can increase or decrease the speed of a moving object, and forces can also change the direction in which an object is moving. So even just throwing an object up in the air like this, forces are able to slow the thing down as it's moving up, change direction as it reaches the apex of its trajectory, and then pull it back down and speed it up. So gravity can do all three of those actions in a matter of a second. Now forces are like velocities. They have directions, and we'll see that come into play in the free body diagrams you guys will be making a little bit later. And in physics, we prefer to use metric units, but in English we use pounds to measure forces. Meanwhile, in physics, in the SI system, we use newtons. Newtons are a made-up unit that are a combination of kilograms, meters, and seconds. But it's so common that we just gave it a unit, like a name, and it just wound up being Newton's last name. So it kind of worked out as a testament to Isaac Newton's work in physics. All right. Now this is a big slide, so if you need to read this one, you can pause it. That's fine. But objects often have multiple forces acting on them at a single time. Even right now, me sitting in this chair, I have two forces acting on me. Sometimes these forces will counteract each other, and sometimes one force will overpower the other forces involved. And those two scenarios are what's really common. You'll see those scenarios happen a lot. A situation in which forces perfectly counteract each other, they are said to be experiencing balanced forces. Another word for this is called equilibrium. That's a word I dearly love because of the roots of the word and what it actually means. Equilibrium comes from two roots, whereas the first part here, the EQUI part, is equal, so it makes sense. And then the librium comes from the word Libra. If you're familiar with your zodiac signs, it's the same thing as a scale or balance. So this word literally says equal balance or equal scales. So this word does mean the same thing as balanced forces. Any situation in which an object has a force or forces that overpower the other forces involved is said to be experiencing unbalanced forces. And the unbalanced forces, when we add them up, the amount that's left over, the amount that's not counteracted by the other forces involved on an object, is called a net force. Net force is the amount of unbalanced force that an object feels, and we can tell a lot about what an object is doing or what's happening to that object based on that unbalanced force amount, net force amount. So from here we get into Newton's laws. Newton's first and second laws are very much tied together. Newton's first law states that an object will continue moving at a constant velocity unless an unbalanced force acts upon it. Newton's first law is really all about this scenario here where we have balanced forces or an equilibrium. So in this case here, we're going to see a constant velocity. What that means is the object will either sit motionless or it will move at a constant speed. One of the two things can happen. This is sometimes called the law of inertia. Now, I understand that trying to picture something with balanced forces and it continuously moves is a little bit strange, but if you think about driving, and most of you are old enough to have driven at this point, if you are driving and you push on your accelerator, your gas pedal, and you push too hard, you're going to speed your car up. But if you let go and push too weakly, you're going to slow down. But if you push with just the right amount of force in your gas pedal, the engine will work just hard enough to counteract the drag forces in your car and keep you moving at a constant speed. So I hope that kind of makes sense as to how that can happen. Now, this inertia idea is really important in forces because of how it influences the way the objects respond to feeling a force. Inertia depends solely on an object's mass, and it really is all about how much an object can resist a change in its motion. And it makes sense that an object that has more mass will be more resistant. If you think about football, if you want to have a person who's good at being a lineman, you don't want a small person there. You want someone who's big because their job is to not be moved. Their job is to stop people from getting to their quarterback or to push the defensive line out of the way so they can have a running back go through a hole. Having a small person there means that it's a lot easier to move them, and they won't be the most effective person at playing that position. But if you look at a running back, running backs are usually in comparison to a lineman much smaller than a lineman, and therefore they are much easier to speed up or slow down. And that is really important in a running back position because you want them to be able to make quick cuts. And make it more difficult for them to be tackled. If you put a lineman and a running back in an open field and try to tell the lineman to tackle the running back, that lineman should have no way of ever tackling that running back because the running back is probably a little faster, but more importantly, is quicker and it can accelerate better than the lineman would be able to. Now, Newton's second law is pretty much the other half of the first law. So the first law is all about things that are in equilibrium or balanced forces. The second law is all about when objects are experiencing an unbalanced force. When objects experience an unbalanced force, they will experience a predictable acceleration. And we can predict that acceleration using Newton's second law equation, which is down here, where F is our net force. That's how much unbalanced force there is. And we have mass times acceleration. So it kind of makes sense then that if we were to compare objects that would be being hit with a force, objects with a lower mass would accelerate more, which is that same idea that we got from Newton's first law. It's just this one's purely for the unbalanced force side of things. Newton's third law is kind of its own little it's apart from first and second law, but this one makes sense too. Newton's third law states that when an object exerts a force on a second object, the second object exerts an equal but opposite force on the first object. So sometimes it's called the law of action-reaction. And this is why if you were to punch something, your fist hurts when you hit it, because you don't just hit the wall or whatever you're punching and nothing happens to you. There's that equal force that happens on your fist as well. It's the same thing that is responsible for us to be able to walk forward, because when you walk forward, you push backwards on the ground to do so. Same thing when you swim, you're pushing backwards in the water to go forward. So Newton's third law is a really important one. We don't talk about it a whole lot when we look at problems and things in physics, but it is a very important thing for us to be able to move or understand motion in general. Now, I want to reiterate here, a force is always going to be an interaction between two objects. When there is a force on one object that is being applied to one object, both objects will feel that force. So from here we go on talking about different types of forces. Our forces will be categorized into two different categories. We have non-contact forces and contact forces. A non-contact force is when two interacting objects are not in physical contact with each other, but they still exert a force even though they're not touching. So things like gravity and magnets are able to do this, so they are considered non-contact forces. Other forces are going to fall into the contact force, which is kind of obvious that they require physical touch for them to be able to exert a force. There are many more contact forces than non-contact forces. So things like friction, tension, normal forces, air resistance, those are all types of contact forces. And then from here, we're going to talk about 5 common forces and how they kind of work. So our first common force is weight. Weight is a force, and I have to do a little bit of work here with this one first because weight and mass are not the same thing. Mass is something that we talk a lot about in physics. Mass is the fundamental property of matter. It's how much stuff that you're made of, and it's measured in kilograms. Weight is a force, and it's measured in newtons. And what it does is it measures how much force there is pulling you into the earth. The weight that you experience will depend both on your mass and the gravity that you are experiencing. So you can see here in this little diagram, if we were to take a 10-kilogram rock, which is about a 22-pound rock, and weigh it on Earth, we'd get 98 newtons. But if we were to fly that same rock onto the moon, that thing would only weigh 16 newtons. Because the gravity there is much, much less. It's only 1.6 meters per second squared instead of 9.8. Things will weigh less there. So even this woman here, who might have a mass of 60 kilograms-ish, should be around 700 newtons on Earth. On the moon, might only be around 100 newtons or so. So you will be much, much lighter on the moon. And there's some things up here. The mass of an object is a constant. It will not change no matter where it's located, but the weight of an object depends on an object's mass and the gravity experiences. So if you were able to change that gravity, whether it means going to the moon or Mars or Jupiter, or even just changing altitude, you will be able to change the weight of something very gradually or very strongly if you change the planet you're on. So the equation for weight, or Fg, is Fg, that's the weight, equals your mass times g, which is 9.8. So that'll be something that is always happening on every object. You'll always have that weight force pulling downwards on an object. Okay, we're going to skip this. It's not that important for what we're looking at today. Applied forces are also very common in free body diagrams, like the ones you'll be looking at in a little bit. A force generated by a person or animal or machine is considered an applied force. Applied forces have literally no rules besides the fact they need to come from a person, animal, or machine. So you can have an applied force going up, left, right, down. You can be a push or a pull. Whereas gravity, which is the only one we talked about so far, must always be a pull downwards. So these applied forces, you have to really take context into account when you are trying to figure out which way they are working. All right. Our next force is called a normal force. Normal forces are a supportive force that is created whenever an object is in contact with a surface, like a desk or a floor or a chair. Normal forces have an equal strength of newtons as to how much force is being pushed down on that object. So because I'm sitting in a chair right now, my normal force is going to be equal to the weight pulling me down into the chair. Now, the thing with normal forces is they will always be pushes out of a surface. So you may not always have them go up. They often are up, but if you were to lean against a wall or something, that would make it a horizontal force from the wall because it's going to be pushing out of the wall. If you were like pushing up on a ceiling, the ceiling would be pushing you down, so that would technically also be a downwards normal force, but they will always be pushes away from a surface. So the key word to this one is it's a surface. If you have a surface, you're going to have a normal force. All right. If you want to continue this lesson, you just want to scroll down a little bit and click on the next video, and we should pick up right from here. So I'll see you in the next one.